Station Houston on 2 for Megan and Mark. Once y'all are in screen, we can get started. Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, we are ready.
Reach, a space podcast for kids. This is Mission Control Houston. Please call Station for a voice check.
Station, this is Brian Holden and Meredith Stepien with Reach, a space podcast for kids. How do you hear us?
Hello, Brian and Meredith. Welcome aboard the International Space Station. We have you loud and clear.
Yes.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to a very special out-of-this-world edition of Reach, a space podcast for kids. I'm Brian Holden, joined by co-host Meredith Stepien.
Hi.
And we're honored to have the opportunity to be speaking today with NASA astronauts Megan McArthur and Mark Vande Hei, both on Expedition 65 on board the International Space Station, live on NASA TV. If you're new to the show, Reach is a family-friendly exploration of our galaxy and beyond, featuring expert interviews with very special guests, like today. The show is a production of Soundsington Media and Nate DeFort, and Sandy Marshall, who is a Solar System Ambassador for NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Our show today features two parts. We have questions for Megan and Mark about what it's like to live and work in space. Then my co-host Meredith will ask questions from our community of young listeners around the world. So, first off, Megan, let's start with a question for you. A lot of our listeners are curious about science in orbit. What experiments are you currently working on in space?
Well, Brian, we just received a new cargo vehicle a couple of days ago that has a couple thousand pounds of new cargo that will enable new science here on Space Station. So we're just getting started on all of that. But some experiments that we have ongoing, one of which I'll be working on today, is working with a simulated regolith. So regolith is the debris that covers the surface of the moon. And if we could use that material to print materials that we could build habitats out of right on the moon, then we have to launch less resources from the Earth to the moon or even to Mars when we're ready to start building habitats. So this experiment will take this simulated regolith and print some building materials, and then on the ground, on Earth, people will be doing the same thing, and then they'll compare the structures to see, is it impacted by microgravity, or can we build these building materials just as strong with less than Earth's gravity? So if we're successful and able to do this, it will really make a difference to being able to build habitats on the moon one day, which I think is really cool.
That is so cool and so exciting. Now, Mark, a question for you. In 2017, you performed 2 spacewalks, including one to replace a mechanism on Canadarm2 at the ISS. Could you tell us what it's like to walk in space?
Yeah, sure. 2 of my spacewalks were in 2017, and being out in space in a spacesuit is like your own personal-sized spacecraft, but it's almost all window in front of your face. So the nice thing about being on a spacewalk is that every direction you look, you can see incredible distances. But at the same time, you have a very important task to get done, which also includes making sure you stay safe, and that involves a lot of close attention to detail with what's right in front of you. So there's these beautiful views, kind of hard to get your head wrapped around the scales that you're seeing. At the same time, you've got to pay very close attention to your job and make sure you stay safe. So it's challenging and exhilarating. It's hard to. I still have a hard time expressing how it feels.
That's amazing. I bet that's difficult. Megan, you have a deep background in oceanography. What are you learning about Earth's oceans while aboard the ISS?
Well, Brian, as you can imagine, the space station offers us a really great vantage point, a really great view of the Earth. So we like to use our own eyes as well as cameras to look at the Earth and take photos as we go by. And sometimes it's fun photos of places that we've lived, and other times we're able to see phenomenon on Earth like big wildfires and recently hurricanes, and we're able to share those photos with people back home, which I think is really valuable for people to see from that vantage point to understand the changes that are going on our planet. But in addition to what we can see with our own eyes, the outside of the space station is also a great platform for some observing payloads that are ongoing, can go on for years and years. And so a recent one that's recently wrapped up called HICO has taken thousands of photos of the coastal areas, and those photos are used by corporations and agencies and scientists to make studies of water reservoirs to see, do we have phytoplankton, which grows in water? Are there harmful algal blooms that are occurring? What is the water quality? And those photographs can help determine some of those things. Those photographs have also helped in emergency response planning, as well as even identifying leaks from oil pipelines. So very valuable resource that was made from a payload living here on the space station for about 5 years. So that's just one example of the many kinds of observations that go on aboard the space station.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Mark, can you describe for us what a typical day is like aboard the International Space Station?
Sure. We have a work week, just like you all do on the ground, Monday through Friday, so I'll explain one of those days. Our scheduled wake-up is at 6 in the morning. We typically get about an hour and a half to do personal hygiene, eat breakfast, get ready for the workday, and we have a meeting at 7:30. I like to get my exercising in right away, so ideally we get an hour and a half for resistive exercise and then another hour for cardiovascular exercise. And then the rest of the day, all the way up until 7:30, is scheduled with work throughout, doing science, maintaining the spacecraft, doing events like this. That all concludes at around 7:30. Of course, we do get time for a lunch. 7:30, we have another meeting to wrap up, or 7:15 about another meeting to wrap up the day. And then we have some more personal time until our scheduled bedtime, which is around 9:30. Yep.
Nice.
Thanks for the question.
Thank you for answering. And finally, Megan, any advice for young learners looking to explore a career in space exploration and maybe one day fly in space like you?
Well, I think probably the best advice that I can give is you really need to be a team player. So flying in space is not a single-person sport. It's something that we do as a team. So there's a team of us here on the space station that are operating the space station and doing the science activities, but there's an even bigger team on the ground that's keeping it all running and doing all the forward planning and prioritizing all the different tasks that we're going to do and working with scientists to enable the research up here. So this is a huge team to complete this effort. So if this is something that you think you want to be a part of, I would say practice your team skills. So maybe that's being on a sports team, or maybe that's being on the chess club or drama club or something like that, where you're working together with other people to accomplish a goal that you couldn't do on your own. So you need to learn to be a good leader, because sometimes you're going to have to be in charge and tell other people what to do, but you also need to be a good follower most of the time and do what other people need you to do. You help each other when it's required, and you need to learn to ask for help when you need it.
That is such a great answer. I love the mic tossing back and forth. It's so cool. Thank you so much for these answers. I'm going to hand it over to my co-host, Meredith Stepien, with some questions from our listener community. Whoa!
Whoa! Doing a spin. This is so cool. I've just never seen anything like this. It's so fun. All right. Thanks, Brian. And hello to Megan and Mark. As Brian mentioned, we have an incredible community of young listeners from around the world, and we thought we'd pass along a few of their questions directly from here on planet Earth. All right. So our first question is from Blythe in Michigan, who asks, what is your favorite thing about being on board the ISS?
Gosh, for me, the answer would be two things. One is the people I get to live and work with up here. It's like the United States government went ahead and picked the best campers you could possibly find, and I get to be one of them. So it's great being up here with my crewmates. And then also the freedom of motion, like you just saw. I can't do a backflip on the ground one time, but I can do a triple up here.
Unreal. Megan, we'd love to hear from you too. Oh, Oh, backflip. I love those socks too. I love that. Wow. 2. Is there going to be a third?
He's going for 3.
Wow, Mark. Unreal. Yay. Are you okay? Awesome. Megan, what's your favorite thing?
I think it's also the freedom of movement. I really like the ability to fly through the different modules. And so, in the beginning, I tried to be very careful and was very slow, moving from place to place, hand to hand, making sure I didn't crash into things. But the longer that you're up here, the more confidence that you gain, and the ability to judge, your speed as you're coming around a corner. Every once in a while, you miss your handrail that helps you make your turn, and that's a little bit of a startling moment. But it's pretty fun all the time. It's a great way to move around. We can work up here on the ceiling when we need to, just move up here, and I can work in this environment. It doesn't feel any different to me than if I'm got my feet down here. So I love that freedom of movement. It's a lot of fun.
Unreal. And can I just say that your hair looks amazing? It's so cool. It's like you're forever in a music video. All right. Our next question is from James, Charlie, and May in Minnesota, who ask, what's the best and also the most challenging thing about living in zero G? We kind of heard a little bit about doing flips, but what about challenging things?
Well, I think the best and the most challenging thing are related. So we talk about how much freedom of movement we have. The fact that we can float and we can fly is really a lot of fun. It's definitely the best thing, but it's also the most challenging thing. So it means that all of your stuff floats all the time if you don't do something about it. And so if you look around our environment, we have Velcro squares on everything. We put our stuff down on Velcro or it floats away. You put it in your pockets. I have Velcro on my pants. But every day I am doing a task and I open up a bag that's maybe full of 30 different items, and boy, those items really want to come out of that bag, and so they're going every which way. You really got to pay attention. You got to have eyes on it. You're stuffing things back in the bag, and so it's really easy to lose stuff if you're not paying attention, and if you get overconfident, you might lose something that you need, and so it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's really, really fun, but it also can make things kind of challenging.
Absolutely. We all just watched Mark do a juggling act, and it was pretty amazing. With glasses, a Sharpie, a headlamp. Unreal. Okay, our next question is from Madison in Georgia, who asks, how do you stay in contact with your family and friends down on Earth?
We are very fortunate. We actually have internet protocol phones, and as long as we have a satellite link to telecommunication satellites, we can go ahead and call any place on the planet, really, who has a phone to answer. So that's been really nice. I talk to my wife every day, and I get to talk with a video teleconference to my wife and children once a week.
Wow.
Unreal. Okay, awesome. Our next question is from Olivia in New Jersey, who is wondering, is there a food or a favorite meal from home that you really miss while you're in space?
Well, I love food. I love to make food. I especially love to bake and make baked treats. So I miss all kinds of food. I think about food a lot. I really miss fresh food. I miss fresh berries, blueberries, raspberries. Don't get me started. I could really talk all day. A cheeseburger, lots and lots of things. But we have a wonderful team on the ground that works really hard to create a varied menu for us. And the food is, it's dehydrated or it's been heat treated to be shelf stable. But we have a big variety. And then when we receive a cargo vehicle like we did this week, we do get little bits of fresh food. So we'll take one single apple and we'll slice it up into 7 pieces so everybody gets a bite so that we can all savor it. So we've really learned, I think, to savor those special fresh foods that come only once in a while.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun. Mark, do you have a favorite food that you miss?
Avocados. In fact, after my last flight, the team on the ground went ahead and flew avocados to Kazakhstan. The flight doctor ripened them in her hotel room, and then when I was on the plane back, I had vegetable chips from my wife with guacamole, which was amazing.
Oh,
Yum.
that is so thoughtful. Okay, it seems like we have some time for some more questions. Bella in Michigan is wondering, how long can you go outside the space station on a spacewalk before you have to come back in?
That's a great question. So as Mark referred to earlier, when you're in a spacesuit, it's kind of like having your own little spaceship. And so all of the resources that you need to have with you. So you need to have power for the suit, you need to have the ability to have clean, breathable air, and you need to be able to cool and heat your body so that you stay comfortable. Those are kind of an overview of the things that you need. You also have some water in the spacesuit. You don't actually have any food, so people usually eat a pretty big breakfast before they get started. But so to answer your question, we usually plan a spacewalk for about 6.5 hours, and your ability to stay out longer is based on what your consumables look like. So again, we talked about your air, water, and power. So we have batteries. We can monitor how much battery life is remaining. We have the ability to keep the air clean, scrub out the carbon dioxide, and we can monitor how much of that capability is remaining, for 2 examples. So usually spacewalks are about 6.5 hours, but they can go up to about 7.5 hours if we need a little bit of extra time to complete a task. If like a bolt isn't turning when it's supposed to, or connectors aren't working quite right, we can stay out a little bit longer if needed.
Amazing. Okay, I think we have time for our final question, which is from Andrea in El Paso, Texas. And they want to know, why is it important to train to go to space?
Gosh, it's important to train to go to space because we are in the middle of an environment that's not conducive to human existence. Right outside the spacecraft is a vacuum, and we wouldn't survive very long outside there if it wasn't for all the resources that Megan mentioned in a spacesuit if you're doing an EVA, or that we have taking care of us inside the space station right now. And because of that, we have to train for what happens if something goes wrong, because it's really important that we can fix things. But we also have, there's lots of science. We get exposed to science experiments and how to operate these pieces of equipment. We get exposed to the systems on the space station, how to maintain those things. It's honestly, one of the really fun things about being an astronaut is the breadth of things you have to get trained on, because it's all the things you would do in a lab, plus having to do to keep the life support systems running, for example.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm just looking with my eyes. There are a lot of buttons you have to learn. I mean, that alone would take forever.
And I see some balloons back there, too, I think. I don't know if you guys were having a party or what.
Parties on the space station.
Yep, you have a good eye. I had a birthday on Monday.
Happy birthday!
Oh my gosh, a birthday party in space is so fun.
Well, on that note,
yes, we have run out of time. Okay, so that is our time today for this out of this world conversation with NASA astronauts Megan McArthur and Mark Vande Hei on the International Space Station. You can follow Megan at astro_MEGAN and Mark at astro_SABOT. Our sincere thanks to the incredible teams at NASA's JSC, JPL, and the Astronaut Office. And on behalf of everyone here at REACH and everyone here on planet Earth, thank you so much, Megan and Mark, and enjoy the rest of your day in orbit.
goodbye.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, they're
There's
flipping.
another one.
They're flipping. Yes, they're flipping opposite sides. That's amazing.
Oh no, midair collision.
A little bit of a collision. Oh, unreal. Yay, thank you.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
Thank you to all participants from REACH, a space podcast for kids. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.